Hey guys, so I realized that over quarantine I bought a ton of books, and so I thought I would kind of update you guys on all the books that I've recently bought. Also, I got these super cute string lights for my bookshelf, and as you can see there's like a bunch of parts missing because I have a ton of books that I recently bought. So without further ado, let's just get started. So I'm gonna be relatively brief with a lot of these just because I don't exactly know like the entire plot. Maybe I've just was recommended them or they just look interesting, and yeah. So the first book that I wanted to show you guys was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. And I am a huge fan of like YA mystery and like detectives and like murder mysteries, stuff like that, and I'd heard really great things about this one, so that's why I picked this one up. Next is a book that I'm surprised it took me so long to buy, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And you know, this book is super hyped up on Book Talk, and everybody loves it. I'm sure I won't love it as much as everybody else, but hopefully I'll like it enough. I think it's just one of those things where so many people have just been talking about it, and it makes me kind of scared to read it because maybe I won't love it as much as everybody else. I don't really know, but that's this one. Next is a book that I couldn't find anywhere in the bookstore, and so eventually I just had to order it off of eBay, and that was If We Were Liars by Emma Rio. And all I know about this one is that it is a dark academia novel, and I think it takes place at a college, maybe. And yeah, this I've heard really good things about. Dark academia is one of my favorite aesthetics and favorite things to read about, and it has deckled edges, which is always fun. And that's this one. So next is actually a book that I just got today, but this was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and it is Cinderella is Dead by Kailyn Barron. And basically this is a Cinderella retelling where it's like 200 years after Cinderella's, like, you know, queendom, being a queen, and every year I think there's a ball that's held, and all of the eligible women have to go to the ball and try to find a man to marry. But if they don't find a man to marry, then the women go missing and disappear, and they're never heard from again. So this is our main character, and she joins forces with the last known descendant from Cinderella, or I think the family of Cinderella, and to kind of basically like go against that ball and everything like that, and just taking down what the evil people are saying, because obviously it's bad that women are just disappearing. So this is definitely going to be my next read after Kingsbane, because I'm reading Furyborn right now. But yeah, this sounds fantastic, and I've heard amazing things. So next is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nieng. I hope I said that correctly. I apologize if I mispronounced it. But this I've heard really great things about, especially from Books with Chloe. She really enjoyed this book, I believe. And I'm not entirely sure what this book is about. It says, in my land, we're known as paper girls, easily torn, existing only for others to use and discard, but there's something they've all forgotten about paper. It can light the world on fire and make it burn. So this is a book that I've definitely been wanting to get to, and I'm so excited that I finally have it. So the next two books are books that I got from a secondhand bookstore, and I've been there probably 3 times over the past 2 weeks maybe. It's really lovely, and they have wonderful staff, and I love going there and supporting that local business. But those two books are A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And I think this is a series, and it's also a TV show, which is how I originally heard of it, and then I realized people were saying that the book was super underrated and amazing. So yeah, I definitely have heard a lot about this, and I'm excited to start it. And the second book that I picked up was The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. This is a sequel to The Last Magician, which is up there, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but it's definitely a book that I've been wanting to get to soon. And I believe it has to do with like time travel and like a specific type of time travel, but I've heard really good things, and honestly it's pretty underrated. I haven't heard a lot of things, but the things that I have heard sound pretty good. So the next book I have is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Audie, and I believe this is 1,000 Nights retelling. And basically it is about a girl whose caliph has been killing every single wife. Like, I think he marries them and the next day they turn up dead. So when her best friend becomes dead, and I think murdered by him maybe, I'm not 100% sure, she volunteers to become his wife, I think. So, and I think this is an enemies to lovers, and I've heard great things about this. This is definitely one of my most anticipated reads. I cannot wait, and this is super high on my TBR. So next is a book that I've already finished, and this is Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levinseller, and this is the author of another book I'm about to show you guys that I've also already read. I didn't like this book nearly as much as the other one, but this one was still really good. I don't read a lot about pirates or like sirens or anything, so it was definitely interesting to read about that. And I will say the thing about Trisha Levinseller is that her writing is very fast-paced and like very easy to get through. The thing about this book is like the plot was a little too simple for me. It was very like one-minded, you know. But that being said, I really did enjoy it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was just a fun adventure, and it was different than anything I had read before. So the next book I obviously had to buy was Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. Now, I started to read this, but I had the feeling it was going to put me in a reading slump just because, honestly, it just wasn't, like, I definitely wanted to get it, but it just wasn't what I was in the mood for. I've been reading a lot of, like, high fantasy and fantasy, so I just didn't want to get into, like, a slow reading type of thing. But a lot of people said it's really good. They really enjoyed Edward's point of view, and yeah, I hope to get to it soon. It's massive, but yeah, I don't think it's a book that I want to start now, but yeah, I've heard really good things about it. So the next book is also a book that I've already read, and it is The Unhoneymooners by Christina and Lauren. And this book was such a fun ride. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I don't normally read romance, but this was a romance book that I thoroughly enjoyed. Basically, it is about a wedding party, and it is basically about a brother and a sister of 2 people that are getting married. And I know that kind of sounds like incest. I promise you it's not. I'm just really bad at explaining. But basically the whole wedding party gets food poisoning, and those 2 people are the only 2 people that don't get food poisoning, and it's an enemies to lovers, but like rom-com type of enemies to lovers. And so basically they get to take the trip to Hawaii, and they have to pretend to be married. And so it was definitely a fun ride. Super easy to read, super easy to get through. I read this in about a day and a half. But yes, I totally recommend this one for people maybe who don't like to read a lot of romance, or if you do like to read romance. But yeah, this one was super fun. So the next one is also one that I have already read, and I read this in a day, and it was We Are Liars by E. Lockhart. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is definitely a book that I have heard a ton about, and what I've heard about it was the plot twist and how nobody saw it coming. And I will say I did guess the plot twist. I even told my boyfriend, because I was reading it with him, not with him, but he was there, and I said, I think this is what happens, and I'm telling you now because if I get to it, then I can tell you if I was right. And I was right. But I still cried. It was still super sad. Definitely a heavy read. A lot of trigger warnings, so definitely be careful with this one. But I highly recommend picking it up if you want a fast read, intense type of read. Basically, it is about a girl whose family owns an island, and their whole family is like a rich family, and like they fight over inheritance a lot. So basically she spends the summer with her cousins, and there's a love interest there for her. Not a cousin, it's a friend of a cousin. But she gets into a terrible accident, and she doesn't remember what happens. So 2 years later she decides to revisit the island, and you kind of piece together what happened to her with her, because she doesn't remember. And yeah, it was fantastic. I highly recommend. So the next two books are books that I got from Book of the Month. I recently decided to join because I'd heard really good things, and it was a company that I was interested in trying out. So the first one that I got was The Shadows by Alex North, and I think this is just kind of like a spooky ghost, like paranormal story that I definitely plan on reading during Halloween and during October. I hadn't heard of this book. It sounded interesting to me, and I just decided to pick it up because I do want to get some more like spooky stories to read during October. And the next book was The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This was basically advertised as like a person who loves true crime podcast, which that is me. I am that bitch. But yeah, 100%. I love those. I love true crime. And so that was one that I decided to pick up, and hopefully I will enjoy it. I haven't heard anything about it, but it sounded really intriguing to me. So the next book is the book that I was talking about earlier, and this is The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levinseller. So The Daughter of the Pirate King is actually Trisha Levinseller's debut novel, I believe, and having read the two, this personally, the story was much better, the writing was much better, the characters were a lot more developed. I think a problem that I had with The Daughter of the Pirate King was that I couldn't connect to the characters. This is honestly one of my favorite books, like, ever. This basically, in the dedication, it is described as a Slytherin romance because the main character is morally gray. And basically the plot of this is Alessandra wants to woo the Shadow King, become his queen, and then murder him so that she can take over his crown and like his kingdom. But the thing about him is that like he's very mysterious, like nobody knows a lot about him, nobody knows what his shadows do, and like nobody can ever touch him. It's fantastic. So basically you're like watching her and like reading about her going through the castle, and yeah, this whole entire thing takes place in a castle, which I thought was really fun. I don't read many books that take place in a castle pretty much the whole time. But yeah, that was a really fun setting for this book. So you see her kind of like trying to become, you know, like involved with him, and yeah, you see their relationship kind of develop. And I would say this is an enemies to lovers, but more of like a one-sided enemies to lovers, because like obviously he doesn't know that she's trying to kill him. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I listened to this one, I read it and listened to audiobook. I probably like 90% read it, 10% audiobook. But yeah, I totally recommend this one if you're looking for like a fun, quick pace read. I read this in 2 days. The next book is also a book that I have already read, and that is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. And this book was also super good. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, and this is a Queen of Hearts retelling, and it is about Kass, who all she wants to do is own a bakery with her best friend, and she's not really worried about getting married or anything like that, but she does catch the king's eye, and so basically she's torn between doing what she wants to do with her life and doing what's going to make other people happy. And you just see the internal struggles of her, and she meets this guy called Jest, and he is the king's joker, basically the court joker, and they kind of have a little like side relationship, and that's who she really wants to be with. So you just kind of see her as she goes through all of those trivial things, and it's also really cool because you get to meet a lot of characters that are in like Alice in Wonderland, but obviously before that, so you know, they're more like underdeveloped, or they haven't become who they truly are yet. But the reason I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars instead of 5 stars was because it was pretty slow. Probably like, I don't want to say 2/3, but like a majority of the book I felt like it was going pretty slowly for me. It really started picking up when there was about 100 pages left, and this is a pretty, you know, large book. I think it's around 500 pages. But the ending totally made it worth it. I cried, and It's really sad. I will say that it's a very sad book, but it is totally worth the read and I highly recommend. So the next book that I bought is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. And this book is a Little Mermaid retelling. I have a lot of like fairy tale retellings, which is really cool. I'm starting to get more into those. But I think it is about, I'm trying to remember. It's about like a siren queen who like turns her daughter into a human, I think, and she has to like kill a prince, but I think she like falls in love with the prince. Yeah, so it's a lot darker obviously than The Little Mermaid, but I've heard really good things about it, and a lot of people talk more about this one than Daughter of the Pirate King, and they are compared pretty often, and I've heard better things about this one, so I'm more excited. I don't think I'll pick it up super soon just because I'm not really in the mood to read anything about like sirens or anything like that right now, but it is definitely on my TBR and I hope to get to it relatively soon. So the next book that I have is Cersei by Madeline Miller, and this is basically just a story about Cersei. I think she's a goddess, and basically just about her life. I've heard it's really sad, and that the book has super lyrical writing, and that Madeline Miller is literally like a goddess at writing, which is really awesome to hear. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, most of the time I'm not a huge fan of lyrical writing just because I find it a lot harder to get invested in the story, and it's harder for me to read, to be quite honest with you, because I'm a slower reader, so it's just, you know, harder in general. But yeah, I've heard really good things about this. It was super high on my TBR, and then I got more books that I wanted to read more, so that's what happened with that. But yeah, so I've heard really good things about this one, and I haven't read like barely any Greek mythology, so I'm excited to get into that genre of books. And the last 3 books that I bought are a series, and those are the Selections, and that is the Selection series by Kass. And so I got this one from Barnes & Noble, and it has this sticker on it. I mean, it has this on it, and I thought it was a sticker, but it's not. It's literally on the cover, and it makes me so mad. But yeah, I never planned on reading this book. It just never really appealed to me. But after being on TikTok and people talking about it and saying that they really enjoyed it, and that it's just like a cutesy, heartwarming story, made me eventually want to buy it, so I bought this one. And I ended up getting these 2 from the secondhand bookstore that I was talking about earlier. But I had went to that store and they said that they had them, but they couldn't find them because literally like from floor to ceiling is books. Like, it's really crazy. It's really full of books, and I understand not being able to find it. But she wrote my name down on a piece of paper and called me and said that they had found them, and I had donated a lot of books to them, and like a lot of newer books, and so basically you get store credit, so I gave them probably like 30 to 40 books, so I have a ton of store credit there. And so for these 2 books, which originally priced are $9.99, they're both $10. I got both of them combined for $2.30, which is crazy. So I definitely plan on supporting that business. I love it there. They have a ton of really cool books. But yeah, I was super excited to figure out that I didn't have to pay, this one was $13, so that I didn't have to pay that much for the whole series. And I'm excited to get to these. They're not super high on my radar, but eventually I hope to get to them soon. But yeah, I did not realize how many new books that I had bought over quarantine until I started making this video and taking the books off my shelf, and I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of books. So I probably need to go on a book buying ban, but I do still have more that are coming out soon, which I might make a video about, that I'm super excited about. But for now, I need to read what I have. And if you're wondering why I didn't include like Kingsbane and Furyborn, is because I got those from the library, and because I didn't want to buy them because I wasn't sure if I was gonna like them. But I am really enjoying it so far. I'm about 150 pages into Furyborn. I'm reading it a little bit slower than normal, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm not in a rush to finish it. I kind of just want to take my time because I've been speed reading through those books that I mentioned in this video. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you like the new string lights. I wanted to make this super chill, just like relaxing video just to show you guys the new books that I've bought. And I hope that you guys are having a wonderful day or night, and happy reading, and I'll see you guys in the next one.